We are on project 2 of Photoshop, the car magazine cover. You should have downloaded and expanded the cars folder. We're going to begin by opening up the AMG JPEG. And if you don't have your rulers open, go to View and Show Your Rulers. And if you don't have inches coming up, right click on the ruler and select inches from the pop-up. We are going to be working with enlarging a source file. Generally, you want to work with an image that is the proper size and the proper resolution, but that isn't always going to be the case. And well, you can generally reduce the size of an image without too many issues. It's difficult to enlarge one, basically because whatever program you're using, and in this case it's Photoshop, that program is going to have to generate pixels based on the pixels that are surrounding it. So you can come up with some pretty bizarre artifacts. And no, you can't do like they do on crime scene investigations and take a fuzzy image from a security camera and force it to become crystal clear and identify the person who is facing the other direction and stuff like that. I've seen some bizarre things on there. It's not that crystal clear. It's not that clean. But we can get some really good results using the built-in algorithms through Photoshop. So start by picking up that AMG file and go to Image and check your image size. So we're going to see, first of all, that we have an image size of 6.95 megabytes. It's a fair size file. It is 1800 pixels wide. That is the original size, which is 25 inches wide when it is at the resolution of 72 pixels per inch. So we are going to need to change this to a 300 pixel image. And if we turn off resampling and we change our image to 300, nothing changes except for the width of the image. It drops down to 6 inches wide, but it is still at 1800 pixels across and the image size has not changed. Say OK to that to resize the image. Again, nothing's changed except for the ruler. We now are 6 inches wide. And when you're resizing, this is always a good step to make so that you don't do incorrect steps. It's always a good idea to do this in 2 steps just so that you can keep track of how you are getting through the resizing. So we're going to go in and we're going to go to image size one more time. This time we want to take a look at the logo on the grill. So drag that in your preview image. And at the bottom of your dialog box, click on Resample. We're going to change the number of pixels by resampling. Pick up the Preserve Details Enlargement setting. That's going to help a lot. And you want to set your Reduce Noise slider to 20%. Artificially enlarging an image results in small pixels of varying color, particularly in areas of solid color, and when you get close to high contrast. So if we zoom into this, you can see in here how we have some little artifacts that can show up. So we want to have our noise reduction about 20%. That's going to help with some of that in our images. And we are going to need to change the width to 8 1/4 inches. Make sure that your constraint is checked so that you don't get any kind of bizarre resizing. But now you can look at your details here and work with your reduction and see what kind of artifacts you can find. As we increase the size of the file, you can see that we also increase the dimensions. It's now 2,475 pixels wide, and it is now a 13 megabyte file. And we're going to say OK to that. And you can see automatically this has just popped up. We're at the same percentage down here that we were at before for our viewing size, but you can see that the image is now much larger. So go into View and let's fit on screen. Save this as magazine and make sure you are saving this as a Photoshop file. The JPEG file is not going to be able to support the layers that we're going to be working with. Next, we're going to be working with sharpening this enlarged image. We're going to use something that is called an unsharp mask, which is leftover terminology from regular film photography, where you would take the negative that has been blurred and combine it with the original negative, and somehow through the lighting it cancels out a lot of the noise and leaves the detail cleaner. So we're going to move into Filter and select Sharpen Unsharp Mask. And if we look again at our grill, at our logo, make sure that you have your preview set. And we're going to change the amount, which determines how much the contrast in the edges will increase. We want to have good contrast around our edges. Somewhere between 150 and 200% would be selected, but we're going to choose to put in 100%. We're going to set the radius, which is how many pixels will be included in this edge comparison. You get a more pronounced edge effect the higher the radius you go, and we really don't want to go that high. So if we do that, we can get really over sharpening, which is not really natural looking. So we want our radius to be set to 2 pixels, and we're going to set the threshold to 3 levels. Again, you can get some bizarre things if you overdo the levels. And looking at our image, turn the preview on and off, and you can see how clean this grill is becoming. So we'll say OK to that and save again. We know that we needed to have an 8 1/4 inch wide image, so we've done that. But we also need to fill a 10 1/4 inch height. We've got the width, but we're going to need to add canvas, which is what we call the artboard in Photoshop. Just canvas, just like if you were working in drawing or painting. And we're going to need to enlarge this canvas to the proper height. So we're going to go into Image, Canvas Size, and we want to add everything at the bottom. So let's change our image height to the 10 1/4 inch. We're going to have to put in a background color because remember we're working on the background layer, and what did we learn last lesson was that the background layer is a solid layer with no transparencies. So we're going to put in white for the background and hit OK. And let me zoom out and fit this in window. So we now have an image with a white bottom. It's not particularly attractive. So we're going to basically undo this. And we're going to make this a floating layer. So in your Layers panel, unlock the background and rename Layer 1 Car. Now we can go back into Image Canvas Size, and when we select again to add canvas to the bottom and we're going to put in our 10 1/4 inches. We don't have a canvas extension color because we're putting this, or we're increasing the canvas, but we now have a floating layer, and say OK, and now you can see we have a transparency going on. Go to File, Save, and make sure that Maximize Compatibility is checked and say OK. The next section is Stage 2, working with vector tools, and I bet you thought we were going to be able to avoid all of that stuff again, but we were wrong. We have all these drawing tools again, which you already pretty well know how to use. We can use our vector tools as shapes that can be placed on a vector-based shape layer. We can use them as paths, which exist only as a work path in the path panel. And we can use pixels, which creates shapes as pixels on a layer, and no vector path is actually created. We are going to be working with the freeform pen tool. And have your image open, and we actually need to zoom in on this and take this to a 100% view. To 100%. Pick up the freeform pen tool, which is going to be under the pen. Let's find that. There's the pen tool, and there's your freeform pen tool. Just like we had our freeform pen tool in Illustrator, we're going to be doing the same thing. In the options bar, we're going to be using this as a path. In the Path Operations menu, we're going to choose the Combine Shapes. So we have the choices that you have under here are going to determine how your path is going to interact with any other existing paths. So it's very much like the Pathfinder panel. We also want to check the magnetic options and click the Set Additional Path and Shape Options button. Come on, there it is. And we want to have the following settings. Our thickness we want set to 2 pixels. For a color, let's pick the light red. Our curve fit should be at 2 pixels. Width we would like set to 15 pixels. Contrast 10%, frequency set to 25. You're going to need to use your hand tool, and we're going to move around to the left side mirror where it meets the car to place our first anchor point. And we're going to drag up and around the car shape. Now you only have to click and drag. You do not have to click and hold your mouse key because the magnet will help maintain the shape. Continue dragging around to get that shape. You can click in particular spots that you need to, and some of this isn't going to be exactly perfect because we're going to have to go in and clean some of this out. You're going to have to use your space bar at times. Try not to backtrack though. But you can click to set some points. But we're going to just simply click to create our first outline. And is it going to be perfect? No. And don't pick up the tires at this point. We're going to do something else to get the tires in. This works a lot better in areas where there's a high contrast. And on your cursor, when you meet up with your beginning point, the icon on the cursor will get a little circle below, and then you can know that you have completed the full outline.